kind of gets that red in his eyes, wants to go forward just like the charging bull that he is. But right now, CRR finding a huge headshot there with the Stark Industry rifle. We talked about the first shot accuracy reset on that being very, very, very quick, and they're going to be able to get a little piece of kind of this third-party action. We saw Stir6 get taken down early, and they're using the palm blast there from the Sentinels to be able to send them forward. You get a nice little redeploy going off, and you can roughly control the direction because it's based off of where the hand is facing. But right now, using that to try and close the gap here. However, the revive is coming through, and it doesn't look like they're able to identify where Smudge is right away.
Wolfie's trio and co, they came right now into this match at 6th place. So they're coming in within that striking distance. They just got to string together a couple of strong games. And you're seeing here their box fighting skills as they pick up a knock on Smudge, who did get a knock on Stir6 here. So Stir6 trio is around this area if there's all the way up. So it's going to be interesting to see what Kenzo Wolfies did. They could get a strong start. They had a good start in day one, getting that victory royale. Nice. Wolfies with the confirmation right there with 2 elims, looking really, really solid. I'm expecting this trio to start picking up elims, considering that is what they do best. Their average placements is about 12th place. The average elims is sitting at 3. No doubt this trio could do a lot more work, but it was that game 2 goose egg that really did hurt their stride, and we have to avoid those goose eggs going forward. So if you're on top of the board, you don't want any zeros. You don't want to get knocked out before that 17th place threshold. You want to keep doing what you do, and that is what Benji and Savage now they have to do. Now there's no Lechi, so that's going to be a duo moving on. So, it's going to be so much riding on the line for this to keep up the pace that they're sitting in 3rd place at the moment.
Yeah, and they've had a tough time coming out of Dooms recently. We saw the dual media pressure come on to them, Lechi getting confirmed, but generally you've seen them be very good at prioritizing getting the reboot and then remaining 3 up. However, not quite able to get that over either, as they only got 2 eliminations, so seems like a little bit of a split fight out of Doom, but decent loadout right now on 100 Thieves. Mr. Savage there, you can see, also has the epic sniper rifle to help contribute kind of towards the picks, and so far today, we're seeing a little bit of a slower match. We're going to have 21 players threatened by Storm Surge. You can see the damage threshold warning there on the right-hand side. Luckily, these guys off of the contest are 890 above. Now, if you are new to competitive Fortnite, Storm Surge is actually active in every single game, even the regular squads and solo lobbies, but it only triggers when you have a certain density of players. The current threshold when the second zone closes and we go to zone number 3, the number we're looking for is 70. So the 21 players who have done the least amount of damage to their opponents will be put under that Storm Surge pressure. It does 25 damage every 10 seconds. So while you can use utility to out-heal it, generally it makes you go aggressive.
And there you see the dual media trio in the background there. But just to give you an idea how important Lechi has been in these grad finals, he is currently leading the way if elims. So now they're missing that. They are kind of spreading that workload almost evenly, 7, 8 respectively for Benji's and Savage. But they've been the only trio that's been fully all the way up. Like, they spend the most time as a trio. So this is going to be one of the rare times in these grand finals that Benji and Savage got to go as a duo. So they're truly putting in that team effort, and the results are speaking for themselves considering that they're in 3rd place. But you can see that the injury that's been caused by that dual media trio out in that distance here, they're basically 2v2. You're just seeing that, a contested Doom's domain could just leave you, yes, you get that opportunity to get that power weapons, opportunity to get those loots, but at the end of the day, man, you're going into these dangerous zones injured.
And you can see Squeeze picking up eye drop there. He's going to get the confirmation there. Matzo's getting busy on top of these guys as Savage actually eats a bunch of bullets in the back. I think that was either the dual media or one of the other teams who's kind of posted up on the side there. They're going to work along this bottom side tunnel here, but they need to be conscious of the fact that they don't have a ton of white heals outside of the chug splashes, and largely they want to save those for endgame scenarios or when both of them need them, if possible, because now it's just going to be effectively wasted as they're thrown against Benji there. And you can see Savage has a player at his back as well, hopped into the box, but they're not paying attention to what Benji is brilliantly done there to get the first conversion. That's largely going to be Storm Surge pressure, but above them, raining down shots on the eccentric ADN and the train hard duo Matzo and Amplify, but Benji going to be able to clean up one. Savage gets the other, and a nice pickup for them there. 4 points so far, but Savage, man, very little white HP.
And if Savage gets tagged here a bit, that's going to be the green light for any trio to kind of jump on down. And just looking at it right here, it's like once you kind of leave your main power POI, the question is, where are we going to find a replenishment? And considering right now, there's literally zero or minimal opportunities to kind of farm up, you're going to have to get it from another trio. And when you're in shambles like Benji and Savage are, that's going to be so difficult. Yes, they get a little brief refresher. They find their little moment of oasis, but that could be soon a mirage going forward for the rest of the ride here in this opening game in day 2. This is the grand finals. This is the FNCS Trios. At the end of the day, we will crown an FNCS Trios champion, and that's going to be awesome. And they're going to collect $111,000, wield the Axe of Champions, and gain the ultimate respect of being a champion.
And are currently on board here. They were 5th coming into the day. Solari, Folgt, and then Rams Clement and Nakos, the French trio, being absurdly consistent during their heats and having a good start to the day yesterday, but 2 really waffling games there. Games 3 and 4 made it tough and kind of allowed for the top of the leaderboard to separate themselves out a bit. Now, one thing about this trio in particular is they're a little bit more aggressive on average than any other trio in EU. They generally will pick up their first eliminations around 8.5 minutes in, which is more so than a lot of the other teams. So despite being uncontested, they're more than comfortable to go out and not only get tags, but look for confirmations. And one thing I want to note, we went from 91 players to 66 players in that nice little spurt there. So the Storm Surge driving plenty of action and plenty of points being doled out, but it's all in the form of those eliminations because the placement points won't come through until we have our top 17 trios.
It's the same thing that we saw in NA East in their day 1, which was a fantastic cast covered by Ozzy Antics and Monster D-Face. All those players in the NA East region were playing so tight to the chest. They were making sure that every build mattered and every peak mattered, every edit mattered, and we were seeing those crazy Storm Surge, or I remember like 5 minutes will pass and everybody will still be alive and up and running. As we've seen in the feed, Analyx gets a confirmation on Vettel, so Vettel, iDrop, and Stir6 are out. Benji is still cooking up right there, going against Carrot, a new star that kind of prop up on the scene in the FNCS Invitational as the coolest Carrot. But hey, I don't know how long you could be cool, man. It's time to heat up, man. I don't know what you got to do if you're the coolest Carrot, but now it's time to heat it up, because right now the action is heated up as we can get a nice overview of Thomas HD and that trio who had a decent start. They pulled zone, and I really believe, and I'll get into it if we have an opportunity, I really believe that shifting that landing from retail, from Dirty Docks to retail rope, is really affecting that Thomas HD trio.
Yeah, it makes it a little tough to be able to get out when you're used to a certain circumstance, but you can see utility being used as players will jockey position here on the 4th zone, and positioning in this zone is so important because the change for the next zone, the 5th zone, will then be our half in, half out. What that means is the new safe area will kind of cut around the outside, so players, rather than heading central like you want to for the first 3 zones, will now crowd around the outside for the hopes of pulling that half in, half out 5th zone, so then they'll get priority on the moving zones that happen afterwards. So zones 6 through 9 will completely leave the safe area for the new zone, and that causes everyone to be forced to rotate, and that's where high ground ends up being so important.
Here is our wild card trio who were able to get into with a very intense, super hype. All the metaphors in the world will not explain how intense that situation is. It is Rojo's trio, and they're doing really well here in the grand final stage, sitting at 10th place, and they pick up a big knock on Hen. And Hen, Puchik, and Deceptos were one of those trios that were a lot of people were picking as a dark horse. So this is going to be a big impact elimination, not only for Dave just on the leaderboard, but for Rojo's trio, for just to have that confidence of knowing that they can compete. And that just what's really wild here about that the 33rd team can still walk away with the grand championship at the end of the day. Deceptos, Puchik, and Hen. And we all know, just like Mongrel's importance to that trio, Hen is super important to Deceptos and Puchik. And Puchik goes down.
Puchik goes down again. Smash Dave, again, you talked about it. Rojo, the World Cup duos runner up there with Wolfie's now representing Smash Esports. You can see SB Nate and then Bobo of Exalti as well. They came up clutch in the final moments yesterday, but now putting good pressure, and we talked about it. Hey, what's the difference between the 1st and the 33rd team in the finals? Well, they all get to play all 12 games, and it's a fresh slate once you get there. So all that matters is you got invited to the dance, and right now these guys have been very much so capitalizing on the opportunities and finding some great rifle shots. The angles here from these guys almost completely covered, and notice how they have the metal full belt cones above them, cutting down the angle on anybody else who might be or might even thinking about throwing shots towards them. So good effort there to convert into 4 points.
It's all about the acute angles right there. Everything matters. Every moment matters. Every knock matters. Every confirmation of Elam matters. This is what the intensity is of Fortnite competitive play, especially on the grand final stage. And some people will be able to step up to that pressure, and they're going to be able to play outside of their minds, and we're all going to get hyped and say, what are you doing? What did you eat for breakfast? How are you doing this? Or some of them are just going to be able to fold. But that doesn't matter. I mean, you made it this far. You have an opportunity to build off of this, to build that confidence. And that is what's so amazing about this, is that if you think about the EU region entirely, it's probably one of the most dense regions in the Fortnite competitive scene.
Oh, it's absolutely the most tense. The most players competing, especially at the highest level when you're going through the most tournament participation. And you've seen time and time again that some of the plays that come out of this region and the gun skill and the level of mechanics are utterly ridiculous at times. Might not have the most discipline, but what does discipline matter when you can beat the person who's across from you 9 times out of 10? And right now you can see Clement and Floki Nakos were able to pick up an elimination onto Vidil and Fastroki's trio. So going to be able to snake away a point there and also avoid Storm Surge for that 5th zone threshold. It is 50 players, so we're right at that line. We are also at the line where placement points are about to begin to be doled out. So once we get into the top 17, every single trio that falls will then be 1 more point. Then once you're into the top 3, there's an additional 11 points on the line. 3rd gets +2, 2nd gets +4, and then the Victor Royale walks away with a big old +5 and whatever eliminations they can rack up at the end. And right now, we're seeing, again, good discipline here from the French trio, finding an angle, being able to put pressure. And they pulled priority on this zone here. You can see their bottom right-hand corner. They have the white line, and everyone else is going to have to pass them if they want to head to safety. And they're going to begin to try and head upwards a little bit. Nope, they open that up, and they see, never mind, somebody's directly above us. We're going to stay on this low ground.
And here we are going into full storm rotations now. 6, 7, 8 are going to be outside of the storm every time this trio gets into the safe zone. And then 9 is the ultimate closing zone. We'll go all the way down to the entire screen is filled purple. But Nakos gets a big knock on Yanis on the same layers there as they're going to make their full rotation. And that is the power of having priority. You could kind of look back and they get X-Squeeze as well. So they're going to trade out when Nakos is going to go down, pick up the quick heal. That's a great benefit as well, being on the front side of the storm. You have the time to res, and they're going to barely get that res off. And now we're going to take a look at the chaos. You're going to have the low ground form up. You're going to have the mid ground form up. And of course, who is at height is always the question that everybody wants to know, because they're going to have the power position here to walk away with the Victory Royale. Savage goes down and gets fully confirmed in the feed. All the names are going to start lighting up here for the moment here, Sundown.
Yeah, now we have our placement points beginning to get doled out, and they're going to come ticking over as we're into our top 15, 35 players remaining, but a good execution there coming through from Nakos and Co to get back to a strong 3. Now they're going to about face and start spraying shots. Andalix will also get confirmed by Blackie, so that's our second place team being taken down. We talked about Rojo and Co, but they will be no mo there as he gets taken out. However, Mongro, Tayson, Mitro, if the number 1 team doesn't fall and gets high ground every game, this is going to be a race for second as they open up match number 6, just like they closed the rest of the day yesterday, controlling high ground and raining down the AR shots with nary a contestant in sight. So we're going to hop on board here with the French trio, who's continuing to work on the low ground. 4 eliminations so far. Nakos has the legendary pump as well as the bandage cannon, so good opportunity to potentially execute here in the late game and make some plays.
CRR stealth, Wolfies does get knocked, but it is an opportunity, though, for at least Clement, Floki, and Nakos to kind of close the gap as much as possible. Yes, already, metaphorically as well, on top of the leaderboard is Mongro, and on height is this game, as Nakos does pick up an Elan right then and there. It's so important, though. We've been seeing the playstyle in the EU region to overcome height at a moment's notice. We've been seeing a lot of low-ground victory royales. The question is can Mongros hold on, and Kenzo is actually going for height, and it's Cammy. 2 teams are competing from height, and it's going to be Tayson that's going to be left on alone. And you mentioned Mongro going down. Mitro and Taysom are going to have to do it as Cammy and Raxo take control of height. As you're seeing on your bottom right, on the top right is going to be the low ground. And Clement, and man, look at them. They're getting so many elims right now. Already with 7 Sundown.
And there's plenty more on the board. They're also getting the placement points, taking over top 4 with 9 players remaining. But all of a sudden, Clement is all alone. He's going to turn around and pick up CRR. It's going to be a 1v3. He finds a second right away. That was Mitro for the full confirm, but he goes down in third. Raxo up on the high ground, running it out now, and the challenge comes up from Kinzo, and he gets swatted down. Raxo and Gamma Gaming Cammy will close that one out. 9 eliminations and 34 points from the Victory Royale. Match 6 closes out there.
In a blink of an eye, before you know it, a Victory Royale is accrued by Raxo and Co. We're going to need the breakdown from Zeke, Shayo, and Reese. What you got for us, fellas?
Well, we got Sancho is day 2, and we have even more day 2 teams. This is what we were talking about at the very beginning of this show. Cammy, Artur, I cannot believe they find themselves the Victory Royale. Just for clarity, they came in and ended day 1 in 14th place. And now they're going to start day number 2 with the Victory Royale and eliminations. I mean, this is exactly what we've been talking about. I'm so surprised, and gentlemen, we're going to break down kind of what went down a little bit more in just a little bit. But remember, we've got the standings. We have these cumulative leaderboards. You've still got Mongrel, Mitro, and Tayson. They're far and away, even after that game, I mean, 40 points ahead? I don't know how they're doing this.
It's like they didn't win that last game, but they did not lose it either. They got to survive all the way till the very end, and now they have an even bigger lead, Reese.
17-point match for them. Really, really nice. And obviously, like we've said, we need to keep this consistency up. They're already coming in strong on the first game of day 2, consistent as they were yesterday. We can see kind of Andalex not managed to get that many points, only 4. So they're still holding on to that second place spot. But, you know, they really want to be trying to bridge that gap between first and second. And so far, it's only gone a little bit further.
Yeah, so our top 3 also switched up with Benji going down to 5th, and then we see another trio, Kinzel, Wolfies, and CRR get 3rd overall. This is what Zeke was talking about, though. Raxo, Cammy, and Artur of Victory Royale. 14th place all the way now to 6th with 76 points.
Wow, that's impressive. And, you know, to answer a little bit of Sancho's questions, how did they do it? They did it because they were popping off on low ground, being really, really consistent. They managed to keep that mobility for the end game, take height, and win the game that way. So really nice play from them, pushing them up from 14th all the way up to 6th.
Yeah, and all the way from 6th down to 15th. There's been a few switch-ups here and there. Nate, Rojo, and Bobo move all the way up to 11th from 15th from what we saw before. Cooler, Robabs, and Blackie are getting that Victory Royale, but are slightly teetering off now, dropping out of the top 10 place. And Paige, we'll see if they can bring it all the way back. Vettel, Eyedrop, and Stair6 also a trio to look out for that plays very consistently. And Falconly, Yaxo, and Skype, I love actually seeing their names now. It looks so clean in 15th place. 47 points, not too far behind the competition. Still very close for the top 15.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it when you can read the names, it's clear, and you can find the players. I'd love it. And all the teams that you're seeing here between 16th and 20, you know, most of these guys are really struggling with that early and mid game, in particular with Storm Surge. You know, these guys in this grand finals kind of lobbies, going for Storm Surge tags is extremely difficult, and your strategy really needs to be down. Queasy Milan Chapix in 19th, coming out of Craggy, is really struggling with that right now. So hopefully they can figure out their strategy, get their points, and keep moving.
I think we could chalk some of this up to just first game jitters, right? Like, we watched the top 3, except Mongrel, Mitchell, and Tayson, kind of fall a little earlier on than expected. But again, we've got 7 total games. We've got 6 more. It's okay, just first game jitters. Let's just test the waters. Okay, game 2. It's time to bring it. Let's go ahead and talk about what kind of transpired in this last game, as well as walk back through the Victory Royale. There's a couple key things that happened there that if you blinked, you missed it.
Absolutely. Throughout the entire FNCS, we've been focusing on the top 8, the top 15. Now it's about the top 3, especially from day number 1 and how they looked. Mongrel, Mitro, and Tayson landing over at Stark Industries, one of the best POIs, and they had a very good game in day number 2.
Some would say the best POI, but the second best POI, in my opinion. Over at Doom's Domain, we're checking in with what was our 3rd place team, which was Benji, Savage, and Lecce. They are contested similarly to the end few games of day 1 by the dual media trio, fighting off spawn every game now.
Yep, and Reese, this is your pick over at Sweaty Sands. They're looking pretty strong as well.
They're looking strong, and you know, the Twitter was going wild about Sweaty Sands last night. They were talking about it heavily because it is a fantastic drop spot, but unfortunately, they didn't seem to manage to perform out of it that day.
Yeah, over here, we'll tune in with Tayson, Mitro, and Mongrel. The reason they find themselves in this low ground chaos is because Cammy, Artur, and Raxo saved all their shockwaves, saved their actual crash pads, took height in the 8th zone. Ooh. These guys only had enough mats to sustain, not retake height, and they ended up falling. Here's Letchi, Benji, and Savage continuing that fight with a dual media trio over at Doom's domain. Letchi goes down. It's just Savage and Benji left in the end game.
Yeah, it's just Savage and Benji left. They did what they could, but that fight took them way too long. They ended up being in the zone with 2 other trios in the 2nd zone, still in Doom's domain, made them rotate late, and that left them with horrible materials because they ended up getting focused in that endgame.
And we have Andalex, X-Squeeze, and Janice in the endgame as well. Also a little bit shambles. It looks like all these day 2 trios have improved. These day 1 type of top performers, the top 3, are looking to repeat things, but they will have to adapt to how these teams, such as Raxo, Artur, and Cammy, are closing out these games.
Yeah, and like I kind of alluded to earlier, these guys took height with those shockwave plays in that last moving zone, and because Mitro, Mongrel, and Tayson did not have enough materials to maintain that high ground, they could not take it back at that point. It was secured for Cammy, Raxo, and Artur. They just continually pressured down from there on, and that was the victory royale.
Man, I mean, again, first game jitters. We'll see. We got to see for the data from game number 2. The question is, though, is there going to be a new day 2 trio that will pop up like this one that we just watched? Or will our first day trios show up? Well, let's find out as we jump back into game with our casters. Take it away.
So much, Zeke. I am Sancho West alongside Sundown, and it is a new day. Yes, it is. We are seeing some new trios who are trying to meet the performance of our day 1 trios. And hey, that number 2, sometimes a sequel, it can be better than the original. We all talk about movies here. Sundown, you've seen it before. And here's take a look at our game 2 of 7 here in the grand finals. And we're going to see a finish here up in the Northwest region, which is going to really favor that Doom's domain and, more importantly, that Sweaty Sands trio.
Yeah, what is going on just slightly west there of the ruins? There's like 3 different teams and 3 different triangles all fighting over kind of the one henchman chest that's guaranteed in that area and a couple others. So a couple scavenger routes that are directly on top of each other. We're going to hop on board here with somebody else executing on one of those scavenger routes. This was our match number 6 winner as we turn over to now the official backside. We're on the back half of the games here. Matches 7 through 12, and right now, again, we talked about it at the start of the morning, it's who can catch Mongrel, Mitro, and Tayson. And despite the fact that this trio was able to take away the victory, they were able to sneak up there into a 4th place with 3 eliminations. So still a 17-point game coming out of them there. As you can see a little bit on how the scavenger execution kind of goes about. The key is maximizing your materials, getting enough distance covered to kind of scout where you're available to go to next, and see if there's anybody you can potentially ambush who's also running one of these routes. But so far, not going to happen, as we're going to swing back on board here to Clement, Nakos, and Floki.
And we talked about this already, Sundown. This is one of those trios that were very deadly in heats. They kind of get up really quickly to get those elims. You mentioned 8 minutes or less, and they get an elim. They average about 5 elims in their qualifiers and heats. They looked really good. You picked them as well to walk away as the grand finals champion. And they had some day 1 jitters, a little bit of stumbling blocks. And now they're just seeing this new opportunity. They took a break that is so important. Now we're at that official halftime point. Just to be able to change your playbook, just to change your trajectory. And like we mentioned, it's just a shift in just a little bit. You don't have to do anything too crazy. Just a simple shift could get you back up into the leaderboard standings.
And one thing to note, too, is they had just 2 really, really, really poor games where they weren't able to get into those placement thresholds. You can see on the right-hand side, each elimination being a point, but the placement starting to tick in once you're in the top 17. And for a trio like this in particular, they thrive on consistently getting placement points. They're not necessarily known for those absolutely massive over-the-top victory royales. They're more than capable of winning a game, but it's not typical for them to be getting those 15, 16, 17 eliminations VRs back-to-back. They did it in heats, though. However, now we're going to swing over to a little bit of contention going on. It's the battle here at Doom's Domain, and yet again, as we saw during the qualifier 3 rounds, Benji and Co. controlling the vault and then utilizing the secret passageways back and forth to try and get positioning over here on the north side of the house. And you can see the dual media group now trying to rotate back over here. However, all of the onus here is really going to be on Benji and Co. to take this one out.
And we're seeing this engagement could be so detrimental to run. Dual Media's trio is sitting in 30th place at the moment. And day one, Benji, Mr. Savage, and Lechi I think they ran them out of Doom's Domain at the very beginning, very early on. It looks like Dual Media has stepped it up just a little bit, maybe trying to take advantage of Mr. Savage, Lechi's, and Benji's slow starts. If they could shake off that slow start, maybe Benji could kind of put a run together to contest with Mongo's trio, to contest with Andalix. But right now, so far, we're just seeing another slow start here, Sundown. Just a little bit. We maybe see the early signs of it. You know what I mean? I'm tasting the air, and I could taste that slow start.
And the one thing to note is about the slow starts today, you think, yeah, well, we got 7 games today. That's one more than we normally get. Like, it's okay. There's time as Mirza there gets picked up by Benji in a nice little 50-50, able to swap over there to the Epic AR. Lechi is also going to be able to get a pick up there on the site. Benji's going to find the other one, and Lechi doesn't get converted, so saving some key resources there as well, not having to go over and utilize the reboot. We'll have to find some additional white heals if they have the bandage cannon, so not going to lose too much, but, I mean, we've talked about it. Everyone is playing catch-up to Tayson, Mitro, and Mongrel, and one slow game, they got 17 points last game. So all of a sudden, that difference at the top, specifically if you're Benji, Savage, and Lechi, you lost 12 points last game. You have to make that up some way, shape, or form. And if these guys don't go down, if we don't see kind of that classic patented Mongrel over-aggression where he kind of overreaches a little bit in the early and the mid-game, and they keep getting their Storm Surge tags, I think, again, it's going to turn into a race for second.
I mean, the biggest fear as well is if somebody or some trio just decided to do 50-50s and try to drop into Starks. It happened before. They did lose their spot early in qualifiers when Jaspy's trio, who is in the grand finals, mind you, kind of contested. They kind of started to lose it, but I think that woke up MMT. That woke up this trio to let them know, look, we're going to have to understand that someone will contest us at some point. And they just obliterated Jaspy's trio in that next day in that tournament. So that is what we're kind of watching here. It's like, will it happen? Could it happen? We already seen OCE and Link's trio slip from that first place, going all the way down to 7th place or so. It could happen, but so far, I don't taste it in the air. I only smell grand final champion here.
And that would be such a key kind of feather in these guys' caps. We talked about them being some of the strongest and best players in the world, and right now trying to put that on display, utilizing, again, we've talked about this as well, the first shot accuracy from the Stark Industry Rifle and the high base damage of it, the fact that it still hits for 35 even at maximum range, and being able to convert on those 50-plus damage headshots, make it one of the strongest weapons, and particularly, I mean, everybody has seen the clip of Mongrel on the high ground with an infantry rifle. This is about the same, and you'll also notice, too, they'll generally run in terms of the rifle choice. They'll have a burst rifle on Mitro, and then Tayson and Mongrel will pick up those Stark Industry Rifles. That way, when you're spraying a wall, you have the fast first shot accuracy from the Stark Rifles, and then the 2-shot burst coming through on the burst AR. It gives them a bunch of pressure to hit trios behind their builds.
We saw that stat of Indretta, Safik, and Mongrel having 15-plus elims, so they are slaying out. But what a metaphor. You see Mongrel's trio all decked out, swagged out, and whiplashes, and then you see everybody else in the back of the pack trying to catch up in the coop. That's the kind of race that we're talking about. Can the turtle catch the hare? And this hare has an extreme crazy start, and they're not going to be lazy like that story hare. They're not going to take a break. They're not going to eat. They're going to keep running at full speed. They're going to take their whiplashes and cross the finish line. The question is, can the people in the coops and the trucks, any kind of Fortnite vehicle, man, I'm going to take it all the way back to the board days and maybe the shopping cart days, who's going to catch up to that whiplash trio? I don't know who that's going to be.
Yeah, you can see those Mark 51s being so fast on rotation, but I will say the one thing that could end up potentially being a little bit of a stumbling block for the trio would be if they end up struggling with Storm Surge today. We've already seen in the first 2 games that first Storm Surge has been massive in a completely uncontested drop spot. If they aren't able to kind of get enough tags to get over the top, that could force them into kind of one of those classic mongrel over-aggressive situations.
Right.
As long as they avoid that, I think they'll be okay. Right, I think that if they've done enough so far where they have the playmaking ability over the course of these 6 games, that they're going to have at least 1 or 2 more solid games in that instance. As long as they don't have 1 or 2 absolutely ruinous games by Storm Surge, this should be good enough for them. But right now, we're going to hop on board with the pressure coming from iDrop straight into the box. Downs gets picked up there. No problem from iDrop 7. However, Stirstix is going to eat a little bit of a problem there. He gets caught in a separate box, and all of a sudden, the 2v2 on the mark, you can see iDrop trying to push forward. They're going to try and get a little bit of a disengage, make sure they can get shields up, but a little bit of a slip up there from what is normally a very strong box-to-box trio.
That was like an extreme push. I've never seen the 1, 2, 3 go, and everybody just box dive in with the AR spray and getting right inside as a trio. And then what ended up happening is they ran into that edit with the triangle edit, and one got caught, got hit right in the shins. You mentioned this in the EU side of things. You got to wear your shin guards, man. You got to pop them, or if not, someone's going to crack you, give you that slide tackle, and there's not going to be a referee to come out of nowhere and give you a red card to kick you out. You're going to have to do this on your own.
Yeah, worst case scenario, you'll get a warning there in the form of one of your players dropping down, but the retaliation not going to result in anybody else being sent off. You can see Nems and Wave Doko rotating through the river, using that downstream current to try and get a little bit of speed, but iDrop being aware of that as well, getting good pressure onto him here, and actually looks like they're trying to kind of pick this fight 2v3. You see Storm Surge is ticking on. 20 players going to be impacted by that here in 1 minute and 45 seconds. iDrop trying to force his way into the box, but plenty of angles and pressure coming out from the other side. Super limited amount of materials here, down to only 17 builds. You can see that under his 1 elimination here as we wait for it to catch up, and you can see good pressure coming out from Nems. He is down the shield advantage, but he has his teammate providing some rifle support on both the angles that you can see. Jaganza and Joko just laying down shots for him. A little bit of spread out, though, if they are able to force in and get Nems situated. And they're going to use the harpoon gun straight in, and Nems is going to get picked off. A huge pickup there from iDrop and Vettel, but can they get out of the water?
You're just seeing how great this trio is, but I think what's really affecting them as we're seeing them trying to capitalize and close out this trio is that essentially that change in drop spot is really hurting them. Look at their power weapons. It's not there. They're really doing this with green weapons and not having that firepower. Yes, you could be the most extreme trio that's going to fight hip to hip, but when you're not as strong as Monster was like to say, a 1.5 player that's walking around with an epic shotgun or legendary shotgun, it's just going to be so difficult for you to close out these fights. It's a matter of stamina, and you don't have the necessary stamina considering that you're basically going into these engagements in shambles, and already iDrop 7 goes down. Sirstix is already out, and Vettel is literally on the green HP as Storm is going to overwatch them, and there it is. They get cleaned up, Sundown, and this is the same interesting that I was talking about Thomas HD, the change in drop spot. This trio of Vettel landed in Misty Meadows during their heats. Thomas HD landed in Dirty Docks. They made the switches, and they have yet to kind of find the right rotations out of those changes.
We can see all the action going down as everyone trying to get above the Storm Surge special. But most important to the leaderboard there, we saw Andalex and Co. ended up having at least 2 of their players fall. So going to be forced into a 1v3 situation unless they can stick a revive. We're going to hop on board here. Nako's Clement and Floki sitting on 1 Elam, courtesy of Nako's vertical shockwave coming out, pops him up into the air, but not going to really find anything. Going to be able to utilize his hard mats, just kind of drop back down. And you can see the Elam feed lighting up, and the only thing that matters is we're not seeing Mitro, Mongo, and Tayson on the right side of that feed. In fact, we saw them on the left side of that feed getting a knock, and right now, Vadil, Kylie, and Fastroki under pressure here from our top 4 French trio of Nakos, Floki, and Clement.
And Vidil was one of those trios that was so hot coming into the grand finals, and they just literally, just like a hot iron heading cold water, boom, just get cooled down instantly, just like that chug splash. No doubt must be feeling right now because it's so sweaty. The competition's going to get so stiff, and you're looking at here, things are going to get ratcheted up a notch. Considering Sundown, we have a Coral Castle finish in our midst, in the distance. But let's just focus in on this trio fight right now. Floki, Clement, Nakos, who's been heating up, had a great game previously. These are the fights that they had lose, because we saw them in day one where they had those bad game 2 and game 3. This cannot go. They have to go their way here. Yes, it's a nice knock on Vidil.
Yeah, Floki actually just put Vidil in a blender there for a second, getting over to the side there. Kylie also going to end up dropping from a couple boxes away, getting a key siphon too over onto Nakos, who desperately needed the extra shield. They wanted that pickup. They know that Frostroki is still around here somewhere. They have the additional flopper, but keep an eye on the bottom right-hand corner. See all of those triangles who are already rotating the zone ahead of them, and with only one shockwave, it's going to be very dangerous for this trio to approach the outside. Still 66 players remaining, 25 trios, so continuing the trend of having a little bit of a denser lobby. However, thanks to those 3 eliminations, they're not going to have to worry about this tier 2 storm surge when it rears its head.
Yeah, it feels great. They got the elims, but they're not yet in the placement threshold. We are about 8 trios going down before we can start doling out those points. And this is the things they're already overcoming these engagement obstacles, but they're not out of the water yet. There's still some stormy skies ahead of them. Nakos, Floki, and Clemento are making their way up the board slowly and surely, but they're going to need Nakos, Floki, and Clemento are making their way up the board. Interesting to see how it all goes down, as Nakos, though, does get a little bit of lobby focus, but that's what you got to do. You're going to have to shoot back and let the people know that are doing those window edits, stop shooting at me.
And one of the key things about this trio is their ability to get eliminations gives them the opportunity to climb up the leaderboard just a little bit more effectively. Again, we've talked about it in the games where they don't drop right away. They're one of the more aggressive trios, so their averages are brought down a little bit by those complete and utter goose egg games. When you take those out of consideration, they have a really good time. But forget what I'm saying right now, as the matter of importance is in the bottom.